Welcome to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. We appreciate your taking the time to be with us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, it is. And joining us is Michael Sena, president of Michael L. Sena Consulting and publisher of The Dispatcher. Thanks for jumping on again, Michael.
My pleasure, as always.
Nice having you, Michael.
In the latest edition of The Dispatcher, you're taking a closer, critical look at operational design domain. And you're telling your readers that you felt it was time that someone challenged the claim that you can define exactly where a robot can drive a car, and if it wanders outside of its ODD, then its keeper is free from responsibilities. So give us some insight here, the overview.
Yeah, as I said, it started, the wheels turning in my head. It started with one of the panel discussions of the Princeton Summit. It was a discussion that was focused around the idea of safety and operational design domains. What is the operational design domain that creates or sort of engenders the most safety? And I asked a question, and the question led to me questioning myself. Did I really understand what operational design domain meant in the context of SAE levels of self-driving and autonomy? So I began reflecting on this, and the more I reflected, the more I realized that I think my observations on it and my feelings or interpretations were probably similar to most others who were saying, well, okay, it's a good term, operational design domain. Yeah, that sounds like it really is appropriate for things like robots driving cars. Why not? I mean, so then I began thinking, well, we humans operate in certain environments, but we don't operate in other environments. I mean, humans aren't very good without equipment operating in the seafloor. We're not very good at operating at heights of over maybe 6,000 feet because our bodies aren't equipped for it. So the more I thought about it, the more I began to look into what it actually means for a vehicle to be operating in an area, in a place. And the conclusion that I came to was, it seems to make a lot of sense if you've got a limited function and a way of defining where that function can occur. And I give the example in the article of a car painting robot. A car painting robot does one thing. It operates in one place. It doesn't do graffiti on the turnpike exchanges. But when you get to the next stage where you're saying that now we're going to have a robot that's going to drive the car, there's not going to be anybody else sitting behind the wheel to take over control, that's when I began having some difficulties.
Well, Michael, I agree with you in a sense. When one talks about automation, maybe one should or one should talk about maybe anything. One should talk about its operational design domain first. This is where it works. This is where it doesn't. There might be a gray area between those two sets here and the rest. But in fact, the objective of those that make certain things, have to make them so that so that there's relatively little gray area. And in fact, then it's the responsibility of the entity who makes these things, and certainly the entity that puts them up for sale to the public, to make sure that the operational design domain is well known. I mean, we know all about the things on packaging, to make sure that if it's a small ball, its operational design domain doesn't include a toddler who can stick that darn thing in their throat and swallow it. And it's everybody. I think that everybody in the producing of things business realizes that, and certainly the legal systems and the liability aspects of that. If they didn't know it in the beginning, they learn it very quickly, because in the sense they're held responsible. They have to come in and say and fix things if the product is used outside of its operational design domain. And I'm with you. The interesting thing about all of this is that, and in some sense, I'll go after the SAE again with their levels. They want to talk all about what it does, but they don't want to talk about where it doesn't do that, where it doesn't work, or where it whatever. And that's the key thing. If you're not going to have a driver in the car or behind the wheel or ready to take over, then it better be able to do all the things that it needs to do. Else the manufacturer of that entity is the responsible one. And in a sense, what's happened, what I think has happened to some of this stuff is they put the operational design domain in the fine print in the user's manual someplace, somewhere out there. And they sort of say, hey, sucker, go read it and remember it. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to remember it. But guess what? If I use that outside of its operational domain, they have to pay. Not my insurance company, not me. Don't put me out there at risk. It's on you. And let's see if we can, go after them that way or something. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, as I said, I think that if you have a vehicle, we drive vehicles.
Right.
We don't drive specialized vehicles built for New York city streets or Manhattan or Brooklyn. We don't drive vehicles that are specially equipped to drive in Chicago. If I buy a car in the United States, in Massachusetts, I can drive that car across the country, and I can drive it into California, and I can register myself in California or any other place along the way, and I can drive that vehicle there. What I can't do is take a vehicle from Massachusetts, put it in a container and ship it across the Atlantic, take it out of the container and drive that vehicle in Sweden. I have to change certain things for that car to be road legal in Sweden. Even though the car came from Sweden, it had to be adapted to the US market. And that's okay. I think that's fine. So the operational design domain for my Saab, 1983 Saab, was built for the United States, or let's say North America, because it was also legal in Canada. But even though the car was built in Sweden, it wasn't road legal in Sweden because they adapted it for the US. And the main adaptation was made with the lights. But anywhere in the United States, I can drive that car, and I can drive it in the hills of Vermont. I can drive it down to the swamps in Florida. I can drive it through the Rockies. I can drive it anywhere. I'm responsible for obeying the laws. I'm responsible for doing everything that a driver needs to do in order to be able to drive that car. I have a license. I'm old enough to drive the car to get a license, and I can drive that car anywhere. I can't do certain things with that car because the car may not be equipped to do it, but I can drive that car. If I'm not old enough, I can't drink and drive at the same time. I can't sit in the back seat and let the car drive itself. I'm responsible for that car. But it seems like we've taken this approach with driverless cars, and when we say driverless cars, we know we mean cars where there isn't someone sitting behind the wheel to take over control when the car is out of a place where it can drive properly. Driverless cars, we suddenly have this idea that we can define where the car can drive and where it can't drive. And by saying, well, it can only operate on interstate highways. Well, we know that an interstate highway in central Pennsylvania might be very different from an interstate highway in Vermont or in Texas or in Utah. The speed limits are different. The conditions of the roads are different. The way that the roads, the legal requirements in those states are different. To simply say we can operate on an interstate highway, well, is an interstate highway similar to a federal highway, or is it similar because we have federal highways that aren't interstates? We have highways that are not interstates or federal highways that are multi-lane, divided, restricted interchanges, restricted access, and we have interstate highways with an absolute minimum amount of requirements, so from the legal and safety standpoint. So what I've tried to do in this article is say cars drive on roads. You cannot restrict a car from a robotic standpoint and say it can only drive on interstates. Well, nobody lives on interstates. Nobody can access an interstate unless they go through an interchange. There's no retail facilities on interstate highways. They're restricted to driving, and then of course there are rest stops and so on. But cars are made to be driven everywhere. They're not made to be driven on this street or that street, or when there are no bugs in the air that can put themselves in front of a sensor. And as I point out in this article,
very nicely, you point out very nicely. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, there are all kinds of things that can occur. And if you say, well, my car you can drive this in a driverless mode. No, you don't have to sit behind the wheel. You can sit in the back seat. You can do whatever you want, and the car will drive itself. But it can only drive in interstates, but it can only drive in Chandler, Arizona. I mean, I need to drive beyond that. I need to go wherever I need to go.
Yeah. But Michael, I'd like to argue to me, that's fine. If somebody wants to make a functionality that operates only in this domain, then that's fine.
What's the domain?
Don't tell me that domain is defined somewhere in some fine print, somewhere in some manual, somewhere where I need to remember what that is.
Yep.
If you define a product that only operates it there, then it's now your responsibility to manufacture that product such that it knows whether or not it's in here or it's out there. And while it's in here, it does its old very good thing. And if something bad happens, it's the manufacturer's responsibility. They pick up the tab. If Elon Musk tells me that full self-driving works in Oakland, and I go and I hop in the back seat and it goes and continues to hit the accelerator and so on and turn the steering wheel, Elon, it's on you.
It hasn't been so far.
Well, it hasn't. That's the thing that's what has to change. Yes. The operational design domain has to be defined in the beginning, not in the end, not buried someplace, not somewhere where, holy hell, damn it, I didn't know that dog was going to eat my homework. Oh, that needs to be that's as much about the product design as anything. So when GM came out with Super Cruise, and finally somebody put something in the vehicle that used some of the great intelligence that is used to look at, don't hit anything out there, see what the hell's going on inside, and they began first steps to then say, oh my goodness, if the person isn't paying attention, well, don't just turn off the thing because, oh my goodness, it might be whatever, they'll go over the edge. Go through pull over, or in fact, just damn stop. We have a ship that stopped in the Suez Canal. It wasn't the end of the world, or maybe close to the end of the world, but whatever, but it wasn't the end of the world yet. Maybe it may be coming, but do that. That was the first step. But this has to be part of all these things. If my cruise control, as you point out, as you printed the list of all the things that are in the fine print in Toyota, oh my goodness! I mean, I would have to have a PhD in Toyota fine print to learn all that stuff. I'm supposed to manage that. I'm supposed to know when it's going to work, when it's not going to work. No. Okay, if you want to define it like this, then make sure that it knows and it senses, and it doesn't let you either use it or turns it off, or and when you get outside of that, or if you're outside of that, doesn't even let you turn it on.
Yeah.
Doesn't let you jump in the back. Pulls over right away. Okay, doesn't let you take your feet off the brakes, foot off the pedal. Doesn't let you take your hands off the wheel. Okay, and I think that I'm suggesting that in fact, if Washington really wants to do something, they have to enforce the ODD part of this stuff and make sure that the product knows it's ODD and operates within that, else they're responsible.
But what I've said in this is that there are two, I see this as, there are two sides of this. One is you can define something that is a function, automatic lane keeping, as defined, the operational design domain that's defined in the UN regulation 157 for automatic lane keeping is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. ALKS, nice initials, by the way.
ALKS, I mean, drop the S.
can be activated under certain conditions on roads where pedestrians and cyclists are prohibited, and which, by design, are equipped with a physical separation that divides the traffic moving in opposite directions and prevents traffic from cutting across the paths of the vehicle in a first step. The original text of this regulation limits the operational speed to 60 kilometers maximum and passenger cars only. Just think, in that little section there, the Tesla accident, one of the first ones in Florida, right, crossing the lane, a bicyclist not allowed on the road, the Uber accident, here it says it's not going to work, and we're going to do these things which it says inside of the UN regulation. This is a perfect application of an operational design domain.
It is absolutely,
yeah. But
what's the but?
The but is if you take it to the other side, the other aspect where we don't have somebody there who can take over, because that's critical. There has to be an ALKS. In the UN regulation 157, there has to be someone there to take over.
So therefore, the edge of the boundary and the operational design domain is very well defined here.
Exactly.
Very, very little gray area. Okay.
Yeah.
And shouldn't the system know this?
Yeah, it does.
It does.
The but is not for this. The but is not for the UN regulation. It's not for ALKS, because I think the regulation does a really good job of defining the tests that it has to pass. And if the system does this, we'll give you certification. The but
wait,
is
whoa. I don't think that that's what the UN regulation does, though.
Oh, I
It
do.
says what it should do. It doesn't say that the system itself has to enforce it.
No. That's not what I said.
Doesn't?
I said no. I said what the regulation does do. It defines clearly where this thing should work, and it defines clearly with the tests that have to be made in order to get the system certified.
Okay,
It defines
great.
that. Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay.
Now let me move to the other one where I think
Okay.
the
Yeah.
operational
Okay.
design domain is completely worthless. If you have a
well,
driverless car,
but Michael,
no, I'm not.
everywhere else, the operational design domain is worthless, almost.
No,
Okay.
I'm not talking
Go
about.
ahead.
I'm not talking about the function.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Automatic lane keeping is a function.
Sure.
It's a function that's defined very specifically to work in a specific way, and it can be defined to do so.
Sure.
If you now take we're going to have a car that's driverless.
Okay.
This is the whole point of my article.
Okay.
It's not saying that it's bad to define an operational design domain for a function that can be limited and can be specific and can be tested. The problem we have is that we now take a function where we humans get in a car and we drive that car everywhere. We don't say, "Oh, we got to the edge of Scranton. I can't go into to Taylor. Oh, I mean, now I have to turn around and go home because I can't go into Taylor, and I really want to go to Old Forge to get that pizza, and then I want to go down to Wilkes-Barre. I can't do that because the car is only operating in Scranton. Okay, it's not going to do that. Or I get on the I-84 and I want to go from Scranton up to Boston, but I can't do that because now I'm going into New York.
Right, you
and
can't do that.
It doesn't operate in New York. It doesn't do that.
Yeah,
I am going to drive my car. It's a driverless car, and I say to the driverless car, I want to go to Old Forge. I'm in Scranton, and I want to get a pizza, and I want you to take me to Gennaro's, not to the other. I want to go to Gennaro's. Take me there.
Okay.
And it says, I get to the border of Taylor and stops. The car stops. Why? Because I'm not in my operational design domain.
Right. That's
or
good.
It's raining.
It starts raining.
It starts raining.
It's
or it starts snowing. Or there's a bug that appears on the sensor and it can't see where it's going, and so it stops.
It stops. Great.
Baloney. No, that doesn't work.
Of course it doesn't work. Nobody disagrees with you there.
Yeah, they do.
Everybody says it doesn't work. And guess what? When if that happens to me and I bought that thing, I run right back to the dealer and I say, this is a lemon. I want my money back. And guess what the dealer does? He runs right back to Tesla and he says, you're out of business. That is not a viable consumer product.
I totally agree.
Okay. We should stop thinking about it.
Thank you.
No, and I think you're helping because that operational design domain is going to be enforced by the system. It's not going to drive. It's going to say, Michael, I'm not doing this for you anymore. You got to do it. And if it doesn't have a steering wheel and it doesn't have a way for you to do it, and if you're not whatever that thing just stops at the edge of Scranton. It doesn't go one more inch. Okay. This is not what's explained about these technologies. One thinks that Waymo, who can get the darn thing to work in Chandler, as you point out in your article, can just show up in Trenton and provide service.
Yep.
No. It's got to certify itself now. It's got to determine. It's got to go out there. It has to have attendants in there ready to take over and save the day if all of a sudden, holy hell, we tried to use it on this street. Forget all of Scranton, these things operating only on certain streets, only through certain intersections, only between certain points in Scranton, in Chandler, in Trenton, in Sweden, in whatever. These things are going to have to be, if they're going to do the whole driving and say you can hop in the back seat, or in fact, we don't even want you to help because you're bad for the system. But we are, you know, the number one line in the Paris subway is automated, right? I mean, that automated train can't just hop up on a Champs-Élysées and go. Of course not. It is constrained to its network, its stops, its operational design domain, period. And this isn't what is clear. We've been sold some concept of, you know, and this damn level 5 crap, and I'll call it crap, of SAE. Oh, everywhere. You know, you can't drive your car in Scranton if it has the Johnstown flood. Okay, because it doesn't go underwater, right? I mean, you know, it can't do it, as you well point this. And this is why I think our discussion on this, you're pointing this out, is so darn important. We should start with the operational design domain. Where does my cruise control work? Where doesn't it work? And the system needs to know that. Where does and also the automated emergency braking systems. Oh my goodness. I mean, they have such a problem with those guys. All right, because they're supposed to be working all the time. Okay.
Just like us.
Yeah,
just like we
Michael, that's the point I think that you make in here, is that yes, the vehicle, if it's being sold as a self-driving vehicle, a driverless vehicle, driverless, has to be able to do everything that I can do, essentially pass the same driving test that a human has to be able to pass.
Exactly.
Or we would say at least be as good of a driver as when I'm not misbehaving. Okay.
But with that flood, I can't drive through it, and neither could the vehicle. So I mean, you're making the point. It has to be able to do anything that I can do.
Because there's no other driver. I'm sitting in the back seat.
Yeah, but but both of you are assuming that this is, you know, everywhere.
It is everywhere. If it's driverless, it has to be everywhere.
No, well, I know that if it's going to be sold, maybe, but maybe it doesn't need to be everywhere.
Why not? If I buy a car,
the number one line in Paris isn't everywhere. Okay, the shuttle, the automated shuttle at Newark Airport, which is lousy, isn't that everywhere?
I'm not buying a ticket on the subway. I'm not buying a ticket on the bus. I'm buying a car. I'm getting in a car, like the people I know. The situation in Chandler. If you get into that car and say, "Drive me to Phoenix," it says, "Sorry, I don't go to Phoenix. I do Chandler. I do Chandler. I don't do anything else."
That's what it does. That's what it better do.
That's fine, but I accept that because it's a taxi, and the taxi says I can't. If I get in a taxi and I say, outside of the Brussels airport, I just managed to get in a taxi. It was on its way. It's had a stop, and I get in the taxi and I say, "I want you to take me to Brussels," and the taxi driver will turn around to me and say, "Please get out of my car, because if you don't, I'm going to lose my license. I can't pick you up."
Okay.
So I mean, his operational design domain is one direction. I can go to Brussels airport, but I can't go back.
Absolutely.
But I accept that.
Great example.
I accept that. But what I don't accept is that I can buy a car. I can buy a car that's driverless. I can get in the car, but I can only go certain places in that car. And I can't go at certain times when I would normally be able to drive that car and take my wife to the hospital, or take my kids to school, or get myself to work. I can't do that because it's out of its operational design domain. Baloney. The car takes a driver's test.
Well, at least nobody disagrees with you on that. That's why there's no market for that car.
You've argued for a long time that private ownership
is like, because nobody's going to be able to deliver your expectations safely and take the responsibility of delivering those expectations. They build that ODD that big, okay? They'll be bankrupt 18 times before they get there. Okay? So that's why there's no market for that. Now, what have some folks done with that? They've said, oh no, we're going to build the functionality only in very limited places. And in fact, we're going to hide this stuff down in the fine print and in the manual, so that when Michael buys this, he's going to think he's getting, he's actually getting this. Mm. And then once he's out of there and we have his money, we're going to say, okay, that's what they're doing. And that's why if they started with you and said, oh no, hey, you have to drive this, and maybe 2% of the time when you're driving, you're going to be able to, okay, that, and start with the design domain and say, that's where you're getting this functionality, as opposed to building in your mind that you can go get pizza in the town next, this thing can go get your pizza in the town next door. Okay. And hopefully you don't even try that until you're out of the lemon wall of whatever, and they don't have to give your money back. That's the scam that's going on here. And they have to stop, and they don't do that just with the, hey, it's going to drive itself. They do it with the other things. They made Jonathan Brown think that the automated emergency braking system in the Tesla would, if it encountered a stationary object in the lane ahead, begin to brake and stop before it hit it.
Yes.
And the automated emergency braking systems at the time, you can go to all the IIHS tests at the time. My goodness, it was only Subaru that would take you from 12 miles an hour to stop and not hit. I don't know. They showed, I don't know, one other one that went from 12 miles an hour to 12 miles an hour right through it. I mean, they were terrible. Okay. They were terrible. There may still be terrible, because they can't tell whether or not the object that they sense in the lane ahead that is stationary, you can pass under. Yeah. And that is the critical sensor that needs to be there. Because as I drive down many, I don't know, probably certainly single digits percentages of the time that I am driving, I am encountering within whatever a stationary object in my lane ahead. It could be a tree that I can pass under. It can be a sign. It can be an overhead passageway. It can be a traffic light. Gazillions of those things. But I can pass under every one of them, and probably in my sensor of the objects in the lane ahead, especially if I have now a LiDAR that has 1.5 centimeter accuracy at 600 meters, holy heck, I am picking up one of those things essentially continuously. And now I can't have my system saying, oh man, get ready to apply the brakes, man. We're doing 70 miles an hour. And man, if we don't apply the brakes, but what it does is it disregards all of them, because it assumes that it can pass underneath them until there are broadside tractor trailers sitting there in the lane ahead.
Yeah.
How often does that happen? Once in a gazillion times.
Well, we know it's happened a couple of times for Tesla.
But now we know it's a couple of times in the gazillion times. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why? And we know that, and certainly Uber knows it, because it was Alain Herzberg.
Yep.
And then so who knows it was a police car or a fire truck or whatever in the lane ahead. I've made the claim, without any data, without any knowledge, without any inside knowledge, that essentially in every one of those crashes, those systems knew in plenty of time that there was a stationary object in the lane ahead, could have applied the automated emergency brake, stopped. But because it encounters so many of those things, in so many cases, and so on. It has, right after an encounter is out here, the next line in the code says, forget about it. Why? How do you determine what the space is in an object in the lane ahead? I don't know how to do that. You almost can't do that visually. There's not a reference point. You don't get a blip back from your LiDAR right underneath that point to do so that you can, do angle bound. I got it. You can't, you don't have the data. And because of the do and the da and the d and the day, you really don't know where in the hell that object is vertically from the road surface, because you don't know where that point on the road surface is. I think. Oh, yes, well, we have deep learning AI who can whatever, machine learn.
What you're saying, I guess, Alan, and Michael's point is pretty much the same, is that as a driver, I can perceive those things. I can stop in time. But
if you're paying attention,
these systems aren't able to do what I can do.
Yeah, they aren't able to do that, and then I would hazard a situation, even with the UN thing, okay, that if you're going 60 kilometers an hour and there's not a traffic jam, and you're just following the person in front of you, and the person in front of you slides over and moves over to the opposite lane. Why? Because there's a parked tractor trailer or emergency vehicle right ahead of it. It sees it, it moves. The vehicle following is going to now pick up that stationary object, and the codes as they're written now is going to disregard it, and it's going to go boom. Betcha.
Well, as I said at the end of the article, in the other article that I wrote in the same newsletter, same issue, it is on UN 157. So UN 157 is in the same issue as the article.
Yeah.
I read the entire thing, start to finish. It's a piece of work that should be read by everyone who's working in this industry, from start to finish. No skimming. Read everything, because in there's an awful lot of information that relates back to the whole concept of operational design domain, and how you write a specification to try to limit the difficulties that a driver would have in responding, and also the vehicle and the software would have to do that. And they do mention this as one of the examples. One of the cases that they have in the regulation is exactly what you've mentioned. What happens when you're following a car, it moves out of the way, and now you've got a stationary object in front of it.
That is a super critical situation. I keep harping on it. Maybe I haven't noticed it, or I'm stupid or whatever, but that has not been addressed, because this isn't, nothing is perfect. We have false alarms, we have false negatives, false positives. These things have to be dealt with. If you're going to have an automated system, it sits there and has to deal with those things. It has to try to determine what truth is. We do it all the time, trying to do what truth is. We move our heads, we bob our heads, we do all kinds of things. We question things, we do, and all sorts of things that try to determine what's really going on. And it's not that there aren't all sorts of optical illusions out there that spook us, that do all kinds of things, that sometimes we apply our brakes, and it might cause somebody to run into the back of us because we think there's an object and there wasn't, and so on. And for some reason we've tolerated that with respect to our behavior, but the Society of Automotive Engineers says, oh no, not for an automated system. It better not tap the brakes, and unless it really needs to tap the brakes. And so people, what they do, hey, if I'm writing code, damn, boom, I'll write the next line, say forget about it. Okay, so to make the Society of Automotive Engineers happy. I mean, people have to, they need to get a grip here or maybe I need to get a grip here with some of this stuff. I don't know, but and I hope I hear from some folks that tell me I'm all wrong. I hope I'm all wrong. They can come on the podcast and tell me that I'm all wrong, but this is a problem. And to me, I think, at least besides the things that you put in there, the really important thing is we really have to talk about the operational design domain. It's not just a footnote. It's not just something that's hidden in there. It's not just a gotcha after you bought the product and you didn't even realize that it had those limitations, and damn it, holy hell, whatever. It should be out there in the front. And the system shouldn't allow us to turn it on. What's the worst thing about stupid summon of Elon Musk? It says in there you can only use it on your own property. Yet somebody can allow me to use that at my Costco or even on my street, even though it knows the GPS coordinates of where it is, and it knows that that's not my property. Damn it. Okay, and that's trivial for it to enforce itself. And so Elon and the whole OEMs have to be held responsible to not only provide us with the functionalities to inform us of what the limits are, but in fact have those functionalities function only within that operational design domain. I don't know. I mean,
we'll be talking a little bit more about Elon in a minute, but first we'll be back with more. This is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website, it's a good idea to read the white paper. It's called The Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Great information there to help you make informed decisions about investing. You may know ETFs can be a smart way to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category of stocks. The site, once again, is motoetf.com. We're back with more on the Smart Driving Cars podcast and our guest, Michael Sena. Alain, in the latest newsletter, a report from FreightWaves headlined "Labor to DOT, Scrap Trump Administration's Automated Vehicles Plan." The unions are saying the AV strategy relies too much on the viewpoint from industry without enough attention paid to potential damage to workers' safety and jobs.
I don't know. The transit unions are trying to save bus drivers who, I don't know.
As you've said before, 1% of the rides.
Transit serves 1% of the person miles pre-COVID. Post-COVID, well, I guess during COVID, it probably served 1% of the person miles. Person miles way down. The problem with transit is that it can't provide a high enough level of service, cheap enough for anybody more than 1% of the person miles wanting to buy it. Is what you get down to. If their model of having a bus driver on a bus route with fixed number of stops running on a schedule, that's a bus. It's limited in when, it's limited in where, very limited in where, very limited in when, and very limited in the connectivity of those places. That's what the level of service model of that system is. And if they could provide that in more places when people wanted to go, where people wanted to go, at a reasonable price, they'd have more than 1% of the person miles. Apparently they can't. They haven't been able to for some time. Now, sure, if we all decide to live differently than the way we live and so on, and have different whatevers than whatever we have, maybe, okay? But they're stuck. what bothers me is that I guess I still believe that in some places, and maybe only Scranton, but not the whole Scranton region, maybe only Trenton, maybe only whatever, having the opportunity to have a robot drive in the places where it is actually capable of driving may afford these entities that are trying to provide mobility an opportunity to serve more than 1% of the person miles, maybe even 10%, maybe 15%. Now, if I talk to any company that says, hey, I have something that might allow you to do a 10x or a 15x of what you're doing, and talk to their employees, they might say, oh my goodness, I might want to do some of this. Now, maybe it won't have me drive buses. Maybe I'll do something else for the company, but it just seems to me that they're walking away from an opportunity to make them relevant, because right now they're irrelevant. And the only way they survive in the United States is if they go to Washington and they go alms for the poor. And we all love the poor, and we all give alms to the poor, and we're happy to do some of that. But my goodness, your business model, unfortunately, and it probably the driver is at the center of it. In certain places, heck yeah, without a doubt. Going to New York City, without a doubt. New Jersey Transit Rail, without a doubt. Absolutely. Express bus services in the morning, without a doubt. Sure. A lot of the other things, not so much. And they're missing out on an opportunity. So sure, go ahead. It's hey, in fact, the first line of any of these automated systems is first to put them in there to make bus drivers safer, to make truck driving safer, not to remove the truck driver, make it safer, make it easier for him or her to feed their family and have a good life. The comfort and convenience and safety factors, absolutely, before you put them on the street. And when we're going to be ready to putting them on the street and taking their job away from them, it's going to be, and it's going to create jobs for them. So I don't get it. Michael, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I agree with you, Alan. I think the whole issue of mass transit or public transportation has been neglected, trying to find a solution for a problem which unfortunately it's a very different problem today than what it was 100 years ago or 50 years ago when people didn't have other types of alternatives. And once we did have alternatives, such as having your own car, I remember when my father would leave in the morning. I would think I was 6 when we got our car, and I remember him leaving for work and going across the street, getting on a bus, and then coming back home at 5 o'clock, and we had dinner, and getting off the bus. And he got his car, and that was the end of the bus. He almost never got on the bus again after we got that car.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was the same with my family. Although I don't think my father got a car or was able to afford a car until he almost retired, and take the streetcar, walk who knows how far to go take the streetcar, and we didn't have it, but we got it, and of course where we live has changed. Many, but there are still others, but this is, to me, I mean, the real reason why I do this and so on is I still believe that there is an opportunity to have a robotic driver do a good job in a limited areas. It's not going to, this business of going everywhere, and maybe provide real good mobility to folks. 80% of the places they wanted to go or something like that most of the time, and whatever. Make it so that, in fact, having one car in a family really works, as opposed to working for just one person. Okay. because in fact that car, stays in the driveway a lot, stay in the driveway even more, but wouldn't need to, the conflict and the need of a car would not exist anywhere near as often as it does now. Okay, because there's another way to get around, and if that is really, and because there's no reason why we can't make these robots cheap. I mean, it's only silicon and code. And sure, it takes a while to develop the code, but you replicate it trivially. And once you know it, it's done. And you fix it. And the other stuff is Moore's law, as we've argued here a gazillion times. And so its price is going to zero. So I still think we can do it and make it be safe and cheap, and put it in there and do the, we don't have any rail crossings, but we don't have guards at rail crossings anymore. I mean, you don't have to have a human do that. Find something better for that human to do. The toll takers on the New Jersey Turnpike, I guess it was a job. I mean, how many careers? I don't know. We've got to do better at having jobs for people of all levels of education, or bring up the damn education and let everybody have Princeton PhDs. I don't know, whatever it takes. But anyway. I don't know if Princeton PhD means anything. I
think it does.
Well, I just happen to have one, but what the hell? Who cares? I mean, they still go, hey, so whatever.
Moving along, Alan, there was a report in Yahoo Finance about Tesla's in-car cameras for driver monitoring being a privacy concern, according to Consumer Reports, adding that if Tesla knows when a driver isn't paying attention, why doesn't it warn in the moment? Something I guess you're not going to argue.
We've been talking about it for the whole time. It's the whole thing. It's got to know what the operational design domain of what it's trying to do is, and monitor that and maintain it. And if they aren't going to do it themselves, then Washington needs to do that and put that in regulation. You got to do that. Or we got to go to the UN. You got to do that. You got to do that. You got to. Otherwise, you're not certified on, whether certification comes from a public entity, a private entity. I really don't care. But it's got to pass muster. And you're responsible if it don't work. Okay. And if it's not good enough for you to be, think that, hey, doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to be there in the times when it doesn't work. Nothing's perfect. We can't ask it to be perfect. Not asking it to be perfect. But you've got to charge me enough. So you put enough in your pocket so that you have money in your pocket in case something happens to me. Because in the end, if this is really, non-communist, capitalistic world, that process has to work. We're not getting anything for free. Okay, so fine, just do it.
Well, here's a rarity, Alan. Elon Musk has tapped the brakes on the rollout of what he calls full self-driving as the system undergoes, quote, significant architectural changes.
Well, as we pointed out in the last one, and thank you, Russ Mitchell, for showing it to me. There was a video that came out out of Oakland of somebody testing out how well does full self-driving work in Oakland. And I mean, you just need to ride in that for 5 minutes, and you say, this is not ready for prime time. Oh my goodness, this is like ugly. And I guess somebody must have tapped Elon on the shoulder or got to Elon and said, hey, Elon, have you seen this or something? And he said, yipes. And he said, I mean, somebody got to him finally. I
been busy
guess.
landing rockets. So.
Well, hey, how is Starship number 11? Is it going to go today? I waited. I watched live all day yesterday, waiting for it to go. They did the test firing, but the weather never cleared up in Texas. So I don't know. I don't know if it's supposed to go on today or not. Anyway.
Well, NHTSA, meanwhile, Alan, is telling The Verge that Tesla's new touchscreen drive selector does not violate any federal motor vehicle rules. Well, that doesn't mean that you like it.
Well, I think we need to get some comments from Michael on this one too, because my comments have been clear on this. I've never liked Apple Play or Apple whatever or any of these big screens in cars. I don't like heads-up displays. All this stuff.
Some screens in cars, especially Teslas, I suppose, are huge.
They're huge, and same thing with heads-up display. I'm not a fighter pilot. I'm not an F whatever, looking to shoot down MiGs or something like that. I don't want to look at my speed. I want to set my speed at what I want it at and let the car keep it there. And if it's going to be either at a certain speed limit or it's going to be plus or minus the speed limit, let me do that. And then I don't want to worry about that. I don't want that in my face. I want to look, I want to make sure that I can pass under the object that's stationary ahead. I want to use my brain for that. Not this other stuff. And the screens, the distraction that must cause driving of all this stuff. Are you kidding? You're supposed to be looking out here and you're looking down here, you're looking over here, you're tapping over there, you're autoplaying, at least they've gone to putting some of these things on your steering wheel. So instead of hitting the AM button over here, which at least they only had 5 different AM buttons for you to hit or something like that. And they had put in FM and, I went nuts. But,
there's some voice control too, I think, on some of these.
Yeah, there's voice control. The problem with voice control and we've gotten a hell of a lot better with voice control than when I was playing around with it. The problem with voice control in a car is, hey, you would hope you're riding with somebody every once in a while and you're talking with them. And now you've got to figure out whether or not I said something to Michael because we're riding together, or I said something to Alexa. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And there's noise and there's banging and it's a terrible acoustic
anybody with one of these smart speakers in their home knows exactly what you're talking about. You can be talking to somebody else and all of a sudden the smart speaker chimes in.
Yeah, or what? I don't know. I've turned them off. I've turned all that junk off. I don't use it. But why? Because again, it's all about the reliability of the systems. It's all about the false positives and false negatives. Okay, and we know that
you don't want to say to the kids in the back seat, "Stop it," and have the car stop. So.
Yeah, right. The SAE would go nuts. Oh my goodness, the car is stopping when it shouldn't be. Never mind. Just because I said stop, absolutely. I don't know. Michael, jump in here, save us.
I think that the what's coming from China is just going to make all of everything that we've been talking about just taking up one more level of ridiculousness. The screens, all of the electronics, the doodads that may or may not work, all of this is just going to get worse. And if NHTSA, I don't know whether this is this NHTSA or last NHTSA, is it the other guy's NHTSA or is it this guy's NHTSA? But first of all, I think that the United States needs to get on the type approval bus. It's this business of self-certification is not making it. It's not doing the job it should be doing. The U.S. and Canada need to be part of the type approval process so that you can get tests done before and make sure that when something's on the road, it's been tested and it's been certified, and not have this business when Elon Musk can say, well, oh, you don't like that? Well, I'll just make a software change and everything will be fine. this business with touch screens, all we need to do is look at the numbers. The numbers tell the story. The numbers of deaths are going up. Why? It's not because the cars are not safer. The cars are much safer, but people are doing too many things other than, exactly, they're doing too many things other than driving the car with their heads straight ahead, hands on the wheel, doing the things that they need to be doing rather than doing other stuff. I mean, I see it all the time. There are heavy fines in Sweden for talking with the phone on your head and texting with the phone down here, and people are doing it. I see them all the time. I'm driving behind someone, I see them swerving if it's on a highway, and I pass them because they've slowed down about 30 kilometers an hour, and we pass them. I can see that they're doing exactly what they shouldn't be doing. And the fact is that the number of people who are getting fined or getting stopped by the police is increasing, but we don't have enough police to.
You don't have enough. You can't police that.
It has to be self-policing.
It has to be. It has to be. The devices can't be going on or something like that, or it has to be onerous, and darn it, in some sense, and plays at times when it doesn't take all that much to drive the car in that operational design domain, however, whatever it is, then if the car could say, hey, yeah, you can text, but damn it, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to make sure that you're not texting unless you're in this operational design domain. And if you are, man, I'm turning off your texting system, or I'm pulling over the side of the road, and I'm going to ask you to bring a note from your mommy before you get your toys back. Okay. And I want that signed by a doctor and a shrink. I don't know, whatever, we can go to whatever goofy, but serious. It is. And of course, this is candy for all of us. Oh, I can't wait to have a touchscreen and watch movies. I mean, this reminds me, you remember, Michael, when we were doing turn-by-turn navigation systems and so on in cars and whatever, and all of a sudden you had in-dash units that would fit into the radio, and you could put a display there and whatever. And it was interesting. The ones, of course, Japan was the first with these things in their cars, so you could have that thing, and it had only a single. It had multiple things it could do, but only one thing at once. It could either play movies or do turn-by-turn navigation. And guess what? Guess who won that one? They were all watching movies on these suckers. Nobody was using it for turn-by-turn navigation. I mean, are you kidding me? Trying to get someplace? No, I'm watching movies. It is such eye candy for consumers that they go in there and here, how much money do you want? Here, you can have it. Okay. And then all of a sudden it's gotcha. And boy, that screen, I mean, how you are going to be driving outside of the operational design domain of whatever system that you have. You're going to be out here and you're going to need to pay attention, and you can't be doing this.
Well, we saw how doing that can lead to someone on a road at night walking a bicycle across the road, can lead to that person being run over. So, and
I don't want to blame it on her, because in that code was that forget about it. Okay, damn it, the person who wrote the code more than her, because they made her feel like she was, she had gone all day long. She would, not being asked to do anything. Okay. And it was going 41 miles an hour. Okay. Volvo's automated emergency braking system is limited to 40 miles an hour, and Uber knew it. And Uber turned the sucker off. They knew it. They wrote code to turn it off. Okay. It's not, yeah. And so she was, the eye candy was, okay. And I'll give her some slack. Okay. She's only a human. Damn it. This is code that should not have been in there.
Well, yes. Alan, before we wrap up, a couple of things. One,
whatever.
In the newsletter, the Smart Driving Cars newsletter, you've got a link that we want to steer people to, a presentation titled AV 101 and Trenton Affordable HQ Mobility Initiative. People should be taking a look at that.
Yeah, we'd like to, and we'll probably do a podcast on that while I'll go with going through the slides on that. I'm trying to point out again the issue with this operational design domain that Michael put out in his newsletter and so on. It is really important. It is really important, and it should be at the front of anybody's discussion about any of this. Where does this work? Okay. And anybody says, oh, level 5 everywhere. I mean, right away, put the snake oil in Alan's hand and give him the soapbox. That is not, forget about it. It shouldn't even be there. It's just like, perfection. Yeah. Well, whatever.
If you've enjoyed this discussion, we've got another topic that you can see behind Michael if you're watching this. Michael's going to be the moderator of this coming week's session of the Smart Driving Car Summit. That's at noon Eastern live on Thursday. And the topic is what will power safely driven cars, the pros and cons from an economic and environmental perspective of different fuel sources for the future car fleet. Really looking forward to this one, Michael.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too, because, this, again, while, some people may think it's already decided. I don't know. We'll see whether or not it's a slam dunk, won't we, Michael?
we will, and we'll have people looking at it from both sides.
Yeah,
from the slam dunk side and from the maybe it's not so obvious.
And talk about slam dunk. A couple of days ago, there was an article in New York Times about a layup. Layups are supposed to be 100%. Guess what? Layups aren't 100%. Slam dunks sometimes get blocked and whatever. So in a sense, like everything, it's not over until it's over. And well, that's what's nice about things. I mean, if we knew the future, it would be boring. Okay. And it's really nice that we don't, so that I can sit here and pontificate in the morning with Michael and Fred and whatever, and we can have a good time, whatever.
Well, again, this is Thursday, noon Eastern. It's live. It's lots of fun there. And the summit will continue each Thursday at noon through April 15th. Just a few more left. Head to smartdrivingcar.com to register and take part. It certainly is important and a lot of fun, too.
A lot of fun, and the three really important ones are coming up. The one having to do with really what is, mobility is sort of an interesting thing with respect to energy, because you need the energy at the point when you're moving. So that's. So you got to get it there somehow, whatever it is, and it's got to be there when you need it, and you're not at one location. So, if I need to heat my home, it's one thing. If I need air conditioning in my home, it's one thing. If I need to be able to even apply the brakes because there's some whatever assistance that goes on in that, or certainly a throttle, or certainly use my power steering, I need energy there. That requires, how do I get it there? What is it? How does that happen? And that makes it non-trivial for mobility. That makes it non-trivial.
Well, Michael, we really want to thank you for joining us today. Really
a pleasure.
Terrific as always. And where's the best place for our audience to go to get hold of the dispatcher?
Michael L. Sena Consulting. Michael L. Sena, www.michaellsena.com is the best place to click there. And all of the issues all the way back to 2013 are there.
Terrific. Thank you also to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and you can find more information at motoetf.com. You can find us once again at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, Amazon, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. You can get your smart speaker, talking about before, to play us. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please continue to stay safe.
Thank you, and happy Passover to everybody, and see you next week.